and welcome to Infrastructure Matters, the podcast dedicated to exploring the dynamic world of infrastructure, asset management, and public works. I'm your host, David Jenkins, Chief Executive of IPWA, and in today's episode, we're diving into the transformative role of finance professionals in asset management and public service delivery. And I'm delighted to have our very special guest, Tanya Garost, President of the Government Finance Officers Association, dear friends of ours. We'll discuss Canada's national asset management initiatives, the evolving responsibilities of finance professionals, and strategies for fostering collaboration and achieving better infrastructure outcomes. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and let's explore the impactful strategies shaping the future of finance and asset management. Stay tuned for an insightful conversation that promises valuable takeaways. So welcome to Infrastructure Matters, and I'm delighted that we've got Tanya Garost from us all the way from Canada, who's the President of the Government Finance Officers Association, and she's been with us the last 2 days at our International Asset Management Congress here in sunny Canberra. And we're delighted to have you, and I hope you've enjoyed the last 2 days.
Thank you, David. It has been fabulous. I'm so excited not only to be in Australia. Australia is beautiful, and this is my first time here, but also to be at the conference. There's been so many great sessions, good speakers, interesting topics, so much stuff that we can take home and apply everywhere. It's not just applicable here.
Yeah, perfect. It's been great having you. And look, I said this to the panel session. We just had the panel session with all our international guests, and it adds just a completely different dimension and perspective to the whole conference. And I know that you've travelled many thousands of kilometres to be here, and for that we are extremely grateful. Now, I want to focus on a couple of things, and some of this is picking up on your slides, but just over the history that we've known each other in the GFOA. You've really driven the whole government finance. Well, let's go back. Just give the audience a little bit of a perspective for those that don't know on the Government Finance Officers Association in the US and Canada.
So the Government Finance Officers Association, or GFOA as we call it, covers US and Canada. We have finance professionals all over those two countries. We're about 25,000 strong in our membership. We deal with education, we deal with advocacy, we do some consulting work, we have a conference. So we really are about supplying the resources that folks need to do the best work that they can in their communities. Yeah,
I think I got it wrong because I think I said you were 40,000 to the Senate. But that's okay.
That's okay. We're 25,000. We're soon going to be more.
Yeah, that's right. You're soon going to be 40,000.
We soon will be.
Okay. And look, you've, and also, with the previous presidents, you've really led the way with asset management and really trying to engage your membership around the importance of asset management. Why is that?
So I would say in Canada, asset management has been a focus. We've had a number of national programs. We have been working on asset management across the country. And so it was something, it's ingrained in the fabric of who we are. It's starting to become ingrained in the fabric of who we are. And so it was natural for me to bring that to GFOA. Yeah. Finance plays a huge role in all of that, along with many other parties. I'm sure we'll talk about that. Yeah. But GFOA has a real platform to be able to engage their finance officers, to be able to be a part of this journey of asset management that everybody needs to be on. We all have assets.
Yeah. And look, because as you said, the finance community, you've got many different, it covers a breadth, right? No longer is the finance professional just involved in spreadsheets and the balance sheet and profit and loss. It's a lot broader than that, particularly in the roles that your members have been, the senior roles. But you said that asset manager fabric, but there's lots of other directions you could go in, right? But at the heart of it, you really have pioneered asset management and the importance of that to your membership. Do you see that as the future for the finance professional as well?
Absolutely. This is just one of the pieces that they absolutely have to become well-versed in, well-educated in, and be able to share with their organizations. As finance professionals, we're so much more than just, as you said, spreadsheets. We're communicators, we're storytellers, we're influencers. We've got to talk to council. Yeah. We have to sort through politics. But within our organizations, we also need to be leaders on some of these issues. And asset management is absolutely one. Finance is a natural sort of collaborator anyway. Yeah. We gather all of our data. regardless of what it is, from around our organizations. So it only makes sense that we can lead in the asset management realm as well and assist with the collaboration that's needed across our organizations.
Yeah, okay. Excellent. And let's go back to some of the, and you said Canada is sort of the fabric, asset management. We have a lot of national training programs. Let's delve into that a little bit deeper. So the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, which is a conglomeration of municipalities, smaller ones, typically right across Canada, have really focused on training in or developing education, raising capacity and capability in asset management, and put money towards this. And that's been going for the last sort of 5, 6, 7 years. How have you found that? How has that worked? The outcomes and how has that raised not only the awareness of asset management but also building capacity and capability?
So the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, or FCM, came. They are an elected official board.
Yeah.
So they are comprised of elected officials. We have about 3,600 local governments across Canada. Most of them are members of FCM. The federal government gave FCM $110 million in 2017 and said, you've got from 2017 to 2024, do some work, get some work done in some asset management and building capacity. And so FCM took that, they turned it into grants, they turned it into training programs and opportunities. Yep. They built some resources out of it. One of the most, I would say, successful pieces of that, because they are an elected official focused organization, was the education of elected officials out of that. And they have some great resources now that we all use in orientation and talking to our elected officials about asset management, what it means in our communities, why we need to do it, why the decisions around it are so important. They also built capacity. I mean, there was training courses for all levels of staff. There was a grant program, as I mentioned. You could get funding to help build your asset management programs. There was a lot of good outcomes, and it's unfortunate that it's ending because we are not done our journey, but there was a bunch of good resources that came out of it that we'll be able to use well into the future. Yeah,
okay. And I mean, for those listeners who don't know, we've got a subsidiary in Canada, NAMS Canada, and they delivered a lot of these programs, a lot of our professional certificate programs in education on micro-credentials. Elected members, that's an often talked about topic here around Australia and New Zealand. How do we raise awareness of asset management, the importance of with elected officials who are making decisions often of hundreds of millions of dollars worth of assets? Is it all just about the training and education?
I think that's part of it. There's also a piece of consistency. There's a piece of keeping our elected officials informed. So I'm a big advocate in my day-to-day role. I'm a city manager. Before that, or in Australia, I guess you call them CEOs. In my role before that, I was a CFO. Yep. So as a city manager now, though, I can tell you that council, my mandate is sort of the councils don't make good or bad decisions. They make informed or uninformed decisions. And it is our role to make sure that they're making informed decisions. So education is a piece of that. Orientation is a piece of that. So as we orientate, I just got a brand new council. We just had a civic election about 2 weeks ago. One of the pieces of our orientation is some work that FCM did on asset management. We'll be presenting that. Here's what it is. Here's what it means in our community. It's ongoing education. I send them regularly webinars and pieces of information that come out of FCM on asset management. And then it's about repetition and consistency. Yeah. We constantly talk in the same terms, levels of service. What does that mean? Utilizing our assets and our levels of service. And we talk about that in our budget. It comes out in our budget. And so it's about that consistency, and it's about presenting a united front in front of them. So it is so key that your engineer, your finance group, your planner, all of your different aspects of your organization, recreation, whatever it is, are all on the same team, talking the same terms, providing the same message to council about the importance of our assets in service delivery.
That's a great point. Shared language and understanding across the whole organisation. And it's easy to say that, but in practice, it can be quite hard to do it. So how have you done that? Getting a shared language across the planners, the urban forests, the arborists, the finance professionals, the engineering. How have you managed to do that? Or are you still on that journey?
We are definitely still on that journey. But integrative teams within your organizations is key, making sure that you have representation from all your different departments, decision-making being done in collaboration on some of these things. It's really easy when we sit around tables, and we do this all the time when we talk about budgets and planning and things, but pictures mean a lot, but actually taking your team out and getting them out on the ground and seeing your challenges.
Yeah.
Here's where we have challenges with our infrastructure. Here's the road that floods all the time. Here's the building that we've got some challenges with. And getting people out and seeing those pieces of assets, and then getting back and sitting down at the table makes the discussion so much easier.
Yeah. And just in the conversations that have gone around in the Congress, there's been a sort of reframing of language. It's rather than talking about assets, it's talking about value creation and outcomes. Is that the type of language that you're talking in?
I would suggest outcomes is probably something newer for us. Service delivery is a lot of what we talk about, levels of service and service delivery.
Yeah.
And of course, assets play a huge role in that level of service and that service delivery.
Yeah.
And so we tie it back that way. We haven't termed it outcomes, but that is, I think, a really good way to sort of frame it up too.
The GFOA, I was involved with another big global professional body in accountancy, and sort of having that experience and then looking what the GFOA, you guys are doing some really good stuff, because as an outsider looking in, you really are understanding that the finance professional of the future needs to be multidisciplinary. It needs to understand the multiple different facets, whether that be procurement, asset management, understanding of taxing. It's a well-rounded profession. What's been the driver behind that? Why has the organisation moved in that way? But it's been quite focused on doing it.
So we believe that in building the best finance professionals for our communities means that they have a really sort of wide view of the entire organization and the challenges that come with it. And so those challenges aren't just in our spreadsheets. Those challenges aren't just in our numbers. Those challenges are actually in the services that we deliver to our community.
Yeah.
So we have to be fully aware of all of the different processes that support those services, of all of the different assets that go into that, of all of the different people that we are stakeholders that are a part of that process. So we've become more than just the finance people.
Yeah.
We have become, and this is, I think, why we've been really focusing on leadership too within our finance people, is because we can become leaders within our organization in supporting collaboration across departments. We're the ones that can bring people together. So communication has become absolutely key. I think that is probably one of the top skills that we are sending out to our finance folks these days, is understanding how they can communicate, not just internally, not just with their staff, but to the community, to their elected officials, in terms that they can understand and relate to.
Yeah.
This isn't about just a whole bunch of numbers on a graph.
Yeah. And in terms of, and this is related, growing the future of GFOA, the GFOA membership, the future finance professional. What are the lessons that you found in trying to encourage and get people involved in GFOA that maybe IPWA and other membership bodies around the world could learn from? So,
of course, I think we're North America is like a lot of other places. We are really seeing shortages in labor, and we're struggling to fill some of our positions, our key positions. It doesn't seem that some of the professions that we have are attracting young people the way that they used to.
Yeah.
But there is something in there, and our younger generation they are very connected to a sense of giving back or making an impact in their communities. And that's exactly what we do in local government.
Yeah.
So getting involved, getting to them at a earlier start. So we have a lot of partnerships with universities across the U.S. And getting out to talk to their students and trying to appeal to them that sense of the opportunity to give back to your community or be part of something bigger within your community. And it's not just about wages or whatever it is. It's about this sense of belonging, this sense of purpose to give back to your community. And we were touching on that even within our volunteer group for GFOA, is just that sense of giving back and being part of something bigger.
Yeah. What over the last 2 days, I mean, we haven't finished yet, but we're coming over the last 2 days, is there anything that you sort of can take away and go, you know what, I've listened to this slightly different perspective, I can probably take that away? Are there any sort of areas or topics or things that people have said over the last couple of days that you go, I can take that back?
I think there's been so many great speakers. But honestly, on the first day, our first speaker, John, was talking about the fact that he walked into his organization and spent a year and didn't say asset management. Yeah. He worked on processes, and for me, I think that really speaks to the fact that we do almost overuse asset management. It is it becomes fabric of who you are and the processes that you do. Yeah. And it's not until you step back and are able to step back a little bit and realize all the pieces of it that you can actually call it asset management at that point. And so for me, it really struck home that this is not about, we're there. We're at this asset management, a high point or whatever we're trying to achieve here. But that it's this long process of getting together and aligning a whole bunch of pieces of our organization and aligning our departments and aligning planning and aligning our long-term documents and putting it all together and then stepping back and looking at it as a process as a whole. Yeah.
And just a bit about your journey. How did you sort of start out and then come right the way through? And now the president of the Government Finance Office Association, but based in Canada. So I understand you haven't had many presidents in Canada, and you've done that. So I'm interested in that. But also, what's your vision? And I think I know some of the answers, but what's your vision for your term in presidency with the GFOA?
So my history in local government, I articled, I'm an accountant, of course. I articled with KPMG, but I specialized at that point in local governments, municipalities, universities, and I also did a lot of Indigenous work with a lot of our Indigenous, First Nations bands in Canada. Yep. And when I finished all of my articling, I was not cut out for public practice, and so I started to apply on jobs. Happened to land in local government first, and it was really a blessing. But since then, haven't really looked back. Have spent my time, and I've really found where I belong. Like this, the idea that I'm a piece of everything that happens within our community. I know that I signed the invoice for that new building or that road construction or whatever it was. It's so interesting to me. But I got involved, giving back is big. I got involved in my state first. Then I moved on to the national organization of GFOA. I was able to get onto a committee, and from there I stepped onto the board. And it was interesting when it was my turn to apply for presidency, because in our third year we have the opportunity to apply for presidency, and we have to go in front of a nominating committee. And it's a very thorough interview process. I really questioned whether or not a Canadian could do that role justice. A majority of our population of our membership is in the US. We have a smaller membership in Canada. Of course, Canada isn't even close to the size of the US. And so I really questioned whether or not I would be able to do that role justice. And after talking to a couple of different people, including the last Canadian president that they had and the executive director and some of my mentors, I realized that it wasn't about where I was from. It was about whether or not I could provide the leadership to the organization and bring to them fresh and new ideas, perhaps a different perspective from Canada that would allow us all to grow. So I applied on that. I was fortunate enough to be chosen to be president, and here I am. So I am the 11th Canadian president in 118 years. So there isn't very many of us. I'm the first Canadian woman to be president. So it's a huge honor to be here. For me, the perspective that I was bringing, I mean, the asset management side of it was a natural side of it for me. Is, like I said, it's just part of what we do. So bringing that, and for right now, it's interesting. It's really an awareness of it. In the U.S., there is some work being done, but certainly across their smaller membership, the smaller cities, there isn't a lot of work being done on it.
Yeah.
So it's bringing awareness to them. The other piece is certainly in Canada, we are engaged in an Indigenous with our First Nations. We've been doing a lot of work on that. So there is that perspective as well, which the U.S. is starting to look at. There is some interest in that as well. And interestingly, finance plays a role in that too.
Of course, yeah.
So we all have a part to play. And then the other piece of it was really, the majority, we have a really good coverage of large cities across the U.S. and Canada. Mm-hmm. And honestly, those are the cities that have a lot of the resources that they need to serve their communities. It's the smaller cities. Mm-hmm. So it's the under 50,000 population and even under 10,000 population. We don't have great representation of those groups across the U.S. and Canada. And those are the people that really need our resources to be able to support their communities. So we've been working, not only we'll have a membership change coming that'll be able to support them a little bit better, but we've also been working through our state and province organizations to be able to provide training to try and get it out to the grassroots of the people out there doing the work on the ground.
Yeah, fantastic. Wow. Wow. And look, what's the one thing that you would say to any young aspiring finance professional that's thinking about a career in local government, thinking about joining the GFOA or indeed any professional body, finance and accounting body across the world? What's the one piece of advice you'd give them?
Oh, that it is way more than accounting. If you're interested in getting into it because you love accounting, but you're interested in seeing more of it, that's what local government is about. It's not just the accounting. It's so many more pieces of it, which makes your job so much more fulfilling, interesting, challenging, but it is a different experience every day, and it makes it worthwhile to come to work.
Well, Tanya, thank you ever so much. Thank you for being a part of the podcast. Thank you for being a part of this year's International Congress. I think the GFOA is in exceptionally safe hands. As we've said to you before, I think the work that you are doing, the work the organisation is doing is really inspiring. And we look forward to continuing our relationship with the GFOA and some of the work that we're doing with Chris, the executive team, yourself. And I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I've thoroughly enjoyed having you here. So thank you.
Thank you, David. It's been a pleasure.
And that brings us to the end of another episode of Infrastructure Matters. A big thank you to our esteemed guest, Tanya Garost, for sharing her invaluable insights on the role of finance professionals in advancing asset management and delivering impactful public services. To our listeners, as always, thank you for joining us. We hope today's discussion has broadened your understanding of how collaboration, education, and strategic leadership are shaping the future of infrastructure and public services. Be sure to stay tuned for future episodes where we continue to explore the dynamic world of infrastructure and public works. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review Infrastructure Matters on your favorite platform. Follow us on LinkedIn for more updates and exclusive content. I'm David Jenkins, signing off, reminding you that in the realm of infrastructure, every detail matters.